chance to make it 28-3. Arthur Blank loving it. Up by 25. Toss to White. He's in! What a comeback!
All right, welcome to another episode of the 28-3 podcast. I'm Max. I'm here with Corey. No Nick tonight. He's already drowning his sorrows from the NFL draft in advance, 24 hours.
It's always the pessimist, Nick, you know, but
I don't blame him. I'm going to be mad tomorrow. I can already feel it.
Yeah, it's been a hell of an offseason so far. I mean, not because we've done a whole lot, but kind of because we haven't done a whole lot, right? I know that was a profound statement of mine just now, but yeah, we haven't done a draft preview in earnest, so this is essentially the 28-3 podcast draft preview. Our last episode, for those of you who listened, hopefully you did, was amazing with our friends from England. We had 6 of us in this room last time, and now it's just 2 of us. And it feels quite different.
It feels lonely. It's quiet.
Yeah. And in the words of one at MKC Papa, swiftly moving on.
Yeah, I'm looking around at like the empty glasses with like leftover whiskey that have dried out from last recording. But
yeah, but seriously, shout out to Dan and Mike from the Saint City Me podcast for jumping on. That was great. But we got a draft to talk about.
Let's talk draft, baby. How you feeling?
So I started to get a little bit of jitters, you know, like the fan pre-draft jitters jump in, just thinking about the fact that for me personally, my favorite player could fall to us in some scenario.
For the uninitiated, who is your favorite player?
That would be one Brock Bowers from the University of Georgia.
Yeah, and this is the funny thing. So we rarely, and I mean rarely, agree unanimously as a trio on this podcast. And the one thing that we have been able to agree on is the fact that Brock Bowers is the best player in this draft. And we would all just love it if the Saints would draft him. Yeah,
and not only do we want the Saints to draft him, we think in this case, it's not just us lusting over a player who doesn't really fit or anything like that. You know, there's been drafts in the past where there's a player who shapes up to be more of like a 3-4 off-ball linebacker that wouldn't really fit in a Dennis Allen system. This isn't that. This is a situation where we know if we take Bowers, Kubiak's going to find a way to make that dude cook. And he's going to cook some good shit. It's going to be Michelin star fire on that offense this year. Now, what I was going to follow up with about my jitters is that my like kind of nervousness, like, oh man, it could happen, was almost immediately followed with like preemptive disappointment. You know, just as Adam and Ryan had said on Block Party Podcast, like, are we going to get socks and sweaters for Christmas? You know, and I don't know that if we get the right offensive lineman, because that's kind of what we're referring to there, I don't know that it's a sweater, because there's some offensive linemen we could get, you know, those top 3 guys that you'd feel good about. The issue would be, and what I don't want, is if Bowers is available when we come on the clock, and Mickey thinks that, okay, Fashanu or Fuaga, whoever it may be, hell, even Latham, I could see us liking Latham, are neck and neck with Bowers. I would hope that's not the case, but if that is, Mickey's liable to go offensive line.
Yeah, and look, I don't have an issue with the quote-unquote socks or sweater draft. Like, that doesn't bother me at all, because you need to have a strong offensive line if you want to be a successful team in this league. You know, it's worked out for us in the past, for the most part, when we draft offensive linemen. You remember Ryan Ramczyk was obviously a huge hit as a late first-round pick.
Yeah.
You know, Eric McCoy in the second round has been a home run. Cesar Ruiz, first-round pick, first couple of years, not that great, but has come around the last few. Obviously, the elephant in the room, Trevor Penning. Penning has been a tremendous disappointment so far.
Yeah.
But that being said, just because you miss, you can't stop taking swings. All that being said, Brock Bowers is the best player in this draft, and I'm including everybody else at every single position. Obviously, tight end is not as valuable of a position as quarterback or offensive line even, or, cornerback or pass rusher. But a great tight end can transform an offense. Look at the 49ers with Kittle. Look at the Chiefs with Kelsey. These teams that have stud tight ends, it really allows them to dictate what they're going to do on offense, and they can just play the mismatches across the field.
Yeah.
So, to me, man, if Bowers is there and they pass on him, and I'm fully expecting that to happen, it just feels like it's going to happen. Like, if I honestly should just go bet money right now on Bowers going 15.
Yep.
Because I feel like it's destined to happen.
That wouldn't be the worst bet to take a flyer on. But the word you mentioned just there, that makes the most sense, and why a tight end, well, let's be honest, in this draft, why Brock Bowers makes sense is the word mismatch. Okay, because, hey, we're in NBA playoff season. The Pelicans play later tonight. You see it so much in that sport of 5 guys versus another group of 5 guys. Sometimes a lower seed just mismatches against another team. It takes 5 guys to create that type of a team mismatch in basketball. Football, on the other hand, is one where you could have one player that's an X factor, where the defense might think they've got everybody all accounted for, and kind of like Sean Payton used to do with his quote unquote jokers. If you got one guy who can really keep a defense honest, sometimes that's all it takes to kind of just give you that nudge. And Bowers, I think, has that potential.
Yeah, I love that you used the term joker. That, to me, is exactly what he is, because at Georgia in the SEC, obviously the best college football conference, we saw him line up in the backfield. We saw him go in motion in the backfield. We saw him in the slot. You saw him split out wide. The guy can literally line up anywhere on the field. And, with Kubiak coming in with the new offense, and by all accounts, it looks like it's going to be some sort of a hybrid between the ones that we run in San Francisco and Minnesota, his stops previously, and then also throwing in some of Gary Kubiak, his father's offensive philosophies. Bowers is a perfect player for that. You need to have that guy that's just he's a movable chess piece. As you said, he's the joker. You can move him anywhere on the field, and he will stress out a defense no matter where he lines up.
Yeah, it really does just seem to make sense. So,
well, but it does, and we're all in agreement on it.
It makes football sense. Does it make New Orleans Saints Mickey Loomis sense? That is the biggest question right now. Yeah,
the disappointing thing is how we've mismanaged draft picks over the last couple of years, trading up, on players that didn't pan out, and then just whiffing on important picks. Like, it's been well documented how missing on Davenport has set this franchise back. Missing on Peyton Turner has set this franchise back. Missing on Penning, we're going to really feel the ramifications of that tomorrow night. Because we're less than 24 hours away from the draft, and we are basically backed into a corner where we almost have to pick an offensive lineman. It could be a left tackle. It could be a right tackle. Well, hell, it could be somebody who could slide inside and play left guard.
Yeah.
We need help everywhere.
Well, so that last point is why I pause before jumping into the, just riding the wave of what has happened this offseason means we have to get an offensive tackle. A couple of reasons. If you can only trust Mickey Loomis's word as much as you can throw it. Granted, he was not smacking on gum yesterday in his press conference, so there's that. He also seemed to be, kind of sober compared to the last one, but spade is spade. But he did say that while need is a variable, they still have the BPA goal, and they still have their rankings. And I believe it was Triplett that asked him the question of, how far up or down on your board, or really down, have you gone in order to fill a need? And I think our fear is that we're going to go like 10 spots down on our big board just to get an offensive lineman because of how dire the offensive line situation looks. Mickey kind of squashed that element of it. Now, he said he might have guys that are neck and neck, but he won't go down that far just because it's a need. Again, so that's the trust element.
And again, they're never going to show us their board.
No, we'll never know. We'll never know. So that's the we'll never know part. Now, my reservation on going headfirst into need versus just absolute BPA is our history of offensive line picks. We have a new coaching staff, so that's definitely something that has to be taken into consideration. The guy that's picked is not going to walk into Doug Marone's office on the first day.
Thank God.
Thank God. He's going to walk into a guy's office that, where at his previous office, he had guys in San Francisco who were set up for success because of scheme. Now, granted, they got Trent Williams, who, you can't deny his talent and pedigree. But the rest of their offensive line, none of them are first-round picks. So I look at our situation thinking, like, we have a need at offensive line, but do we have a need to draft a first-round offensive lineman? Because for me, if it's Fashanu or Bowers, I mean, I know we've established why we're taking Bowers, or someone of Bowers' caliber, or someone, a skill player, offensive skill player. I'm taking the offensive skill player because I truly think that O-line is deep this year. At 45, you can get an offensive lineman who Kubiak can make work. Now Joe Alt is a different story if he miraculously falls to 14.
No way in hell.
But it won't happen. So I have some trepidation with just going full, headfirst into, got to draft an offensive lineman as soon as you possibly can. So that has to be at 14, no matter what.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, I would absolutely take Bowers over the offensive lineman at 14 if he's there. And then at pick 45, that's where you go and you say, we have to get an offensive lineman here. So whoever the best one is at that point, you take him. And then to me, you take the mass amount of fifth-round picks that we have, package those all up, get into the third round, and go and get another offensive lineman. Like, to me, that has to be the plan if that slim chance Bowers makes it to 14 and we actually take him. That needs to be the plan. Second round offensive lineman, trade up the other picks that we have and get into the third round, get another offensive lineman.
Yeah. I would be shocked if we get to the end of the draft with all five. I mean,
He basically said in his press conference,
all of our fifth round picks.
They're gonna. I would bet good money, and I'm going on record right now saying the Saints will absolutely make 2 picks on day 2. Mark my words. Whether it's pick 45 or whether it's another pick in the second round, they are going to pick 2 players on Friday night.
Usually this is the point where I say, no, you're full of shit, and then we make a bet. But I'm not going to do that in this case.
We can if you want to.
No, not on that. Not on that.
Well, let me say this. Let me ask you this. What is your cloud? Sean Payton used to always say, our cloud at this pick had this many players, and these were the ones. Who is your cloud for pick 14? Assuming we stay at 14,
right?
Give me 3 to 5 guys that you would be absolutely thrilled with us picking. Obviously, Bowers is going to be your one.
That's my bias has taken over this draft like no other. I hate when kids say that, but it's true. I mean, like, I've never been so tunnel visioned on one player in an NFL draft. So
let's say he's gone though. Who are the ones you would be thrilled with?
With that preface, I don't know if I'd be thrilled with anybody else. I'd be thrilled with Joe Alt, but that's not happening. We already said that.
But look, let's pretend Bowers is off the board.
I'll stop beating around the bush. I mean, it's Fashanu, Fuaga. For me, Brian Thomas is in that cloud.
I don't want him at 14.
I know you don't. I mean, we've talked about this.
Don't want any part. I don't want any wide receiver at 14 unless it's one of the big 3.
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, in some order. If one of them made it to 14, then I would take him. Other than that, I'm not taking any wide receiver at 14. I'll take him at 45.
Yeah, and it's just tough because I'm more skeptical of each and every offensive line prospect only because of our misses in the past. And when I say misses,
there are more hits on the offensive line than misses.
Right, and because Penning has just put a cloud over all of that. But
I mean, go back to the beginning of the Peyton era, because I'm going to say that's really the Mickey Loomis era got started in full at that point. Look at the people we drafted on the offensive line in the first round, second round, third, even into the middle rounds. You've gotten some studs. Future Hall of Famer Jari Evans, Carl Nix was one of the best guards in the league at one point. Jamon Bushrod, Zach Streif, and then you get onto the guys who are on the team now, like a Ramczyk, McCoy. Like, they've hit more often than they've missed. It's just that we're on a cold streak over the last couple of years. So everyone's, it's that what have you done for me lately situation. And we're all looking at how they fucked up over the last couple of years. And the draft picks have not hit. But they have done a really good job on offensive linemen in this tenure.
Yeah. Overall, it's been...
So I'm not as gun shy as you are. I just don't want a project like Penning was. Penning came from a tiny school.
Yeah.
He's playing trash competition. I want someone who has played in a major conference and has played against guys who are actually going to play in the NFL.
Put it this way. If you might find somebody that contradicts this statement, but if we draft someone that comes from outside of a Power 5 school with our first 2 picks, I'm going to be pissed.
I am too.
And I know RAS is fun to look at, and it makes you feel good about a guy who comes in, but I'm kind of tired of us worrying about that shit, to be honest. I don't think that you can point to this RAS score and say definitively that has helped us.
No, it hasn't, but I don't think it's the sole way that they pick players. I think it's just that's what they use as a tiebreaker.
That's where these small school guys end up coming into the fold. Like if they didn't have that score, those guys might not float up to the top of their cloud or even in their cloud.
We say that, but Penning was at the Senior Bowl, which means he was on the radar of everybody before he did his measurables and worked out and did all of that. So you kind of got to – look, Penning, he was on everybody's radar. And look, we all loved it because we watched him at the Senior Bowl throwing people down after the whistle. He had that nastiness that you need in offensive lineman. And look, I still think Penning has a chance to be a starter.
Yeah, he has a chance. He does still have
I think under a new coaching staff, and if he can stay healthy, and obviously these are all big ifs, but I do see a path for Penning to be in that Cesar Ruiz category where he's a solid starter and you're not worried about him.
Yeah.
That being said, so those were your guys. You gave me.
Well, I gave you Fashanu.
So Bowers 1. Who's 2?
Fashanu's 2 for me.
Not Alt. Alt would be 2.
Well, Alt would be 2, but I'm not. I don't think he.
Well, going off of we looked at Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock, which dropped about 30 minutes ago, and he has J.C. Latham going ahead of Alt.
Latham has a high score. Well, that was a whistle, but his high score.
I don't love him for our scheme, though, because he's that big, massive mauler, and this scheme, from what we've seen, looks like it's going to be more athletic guys.
Yeah, and there's reports out there that Latham might actually be even bigger than what he's listed. He's already listed at 340.
Yeah, he's a monster.
And
look, if we were in last year's scheme, I'd be like, bring him on, because that's exactly what you need.
Right. So the only other, I had a.
So you got Bowers, Alt. I don't know if it's Fashanu or Fashanu. We don't know.
I think we'll find out. Let's ask Roman because he steered us well on a.
Yeah.
But anyway, Fuaga, and then I got to throw because I think he's in range, but Dallas Turner also late 2. I like.
Don't give me the whole first round here. I just needed like 2 or 3. Just give me your actual realistic cloud. We don't need a name.
Well, let's get Alt out of there for realistic cloud. So Fashanu, Bowers.
Would you? Let me ask you this: would you be upset with a trade up to 10 if Alt were there?
No, I wouldn't be.
I wouldn't.
I think that'd be a good move. So that's kind of where I'm looking. Byron Murphy's kind of gone up boards recently.
And the reason I ask is because there's rumors floating around that the Saints have been sniffing around, as they always do, about moving up into the top 10.
I know Mickey wants to get ideally ahead of Atlanta. Because then you take your division.
I don't understand why you would need to go ahead of Atlanta, though. They're going to pick a defensive player. We're not looking there.
Presumably. We don't know. But then you take that variable out of the equation. He definitely wants to get ahead. If he wants Bowers, he wants to get ahead of the Jets. But I think
there's word going around the Jets are looking to trade back.
Yeah, and there's that.
I don't think you need to get ahead of Atlanta, and I don't think Loomis is even thinking about that because they're not. Basically, they're looking at the best defensive player.
I know their needs are different than us, but their GM came from our system.
Yeah,
they're a division rival. I think there's reasons to do it because the other natural byproduct of that is you're going to get a badass player if you get ahead of them. But if you have to give up too much, then there's no.
I don't subscribe to the get ahead of Atlanta theory at all.
You don't want to get ahead of Atlanta? I always want to get ahead of Atlanta.
In the fucking draft? No, it's stupid. I don't want to trade up. I don't want to trade up unless
I'm fine with trading up, but it's the cost. If we
this year I don't want to trade up.
No.
I want them to stay at 14 because there's going to be a really good player at 14, and I don't give a flying fuck who Atlanta picks.
Yeah, it's deep for our needs. So this is not the the draft to like do anything close to a.
Well, we're not
Olave
close
trade.
enough for us to take a swing at moving up and
No.
final piece to the puzzle or any of that.
No.
I'll give you my cloud.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Bowers
So
is
who do you
number
have
one,
yours?
obviously. I'm putting Alt at number 2 just on the possibility maybe he gets to 9 or 10 and you can make a small little move up the board.
What you would call an off chance at this point.
An off chance, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go Fashanu. Mm-hmm. We'll put him at 3rd. Fuaga,
Yeah.
like him as my 4th guy, and then let's see, Troy Fotanu from Washington.
Yeah.
I like him. He's smaller, but he's athletic as fuck. He's mean. He's
Yeah.
Samoan. Give me those guys. Like Nick knows this. We've always loved our Polynesian players on the defensive line and the offensive line.
Yeah.
They're badasses, and it's.
Well, I won't bring up Haloi Kakaha.
He's not. No. Listen, I said offensive line, defensive line, not linebacker.
Okay.
Not linebacker.
Yeah.
That's my cloud.
I think Caden Ellis was Samoan.
He
Had
might
to
have
have been.
He might have some in him, but he's not a true Samoan. He doesn't have a last name like Fotanu or Fuaga.
Caden Fuaga would be pretty badass.
It would, but unfortunately, he didn't have that name.
Yeah, but he gone though. He a Falcon, so
Yeah.
fuck him.
So my ideal situation is like stay at 14. Ideally, Bowers falls there, and we actually take him, and then at that point, go offensive lineman the rest of the way. I do think Bowers will be gone before we pick, and at that point, take one of those offensive linemen.
Yeah.
I think one of them is going to be there. Don't move up the board for someone who doesn't denote moving up the board.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Don't do this 2-for-1 shit where you're trading drafts, first round pick next year, and there's a real possibility the wheels fall off this year, and that pick's a top 5 pick. Don't pull a Carolina Panthers, I guess is what I'm getting
Oh
at.
God, yeah. Well, the wild card, and kind of brought it up earlier, is that like we don't know what their big board is. The Saints' big board always has some people that obviously the Peyton Turner pick. We could have never thought of that guy. being
Nobody did.
That spot on the board. So
I don't think any other GM did.
the Saints' big board, which no one who's doing a podcast or fan, I'm assuming, has ever seen, is scary hours, because there could be a guy on there who we just don't know about. Could be a complete wild card question mark. And so I said wild card like 5 times now, but that's it. That's what gives us pause going into a draft.
Well, let's talk about the second round.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So pick number 45.
I know who you want specifically, but
I have a couple of guys.
yeah.
That I would love to see us look at pick 45. Keon Coleman's been the leader in the clubhouse for me. Watched him all year. I've always been a Florida State guy. He just makes circus catches. He's a bigger guy, 6'3 and a half, 215. He's got that. We watched him in the gauntlet drill at the combine, and he was able to stay at top speed the entire way. Where all of these faster guys, in the 40 are slowing down to make these catches.
Didn't he get to the fastest time in the gauntlet?
He was one of the fastest ones this
'Cause
year.
Remember them showing the miles per hour of Puka Nakua last year,
It was very steady.
and he was like right up there with him.
I'm glad you said that because
Yeah.
that's the almost the comp I was going to say. Puka, bigger, thicker guy, mid-round pick. Didn't do much in college at all. Gets to the NFL and he's an absolute stud.
Yeah, and I mean, do the math on the gauntlet drill, right? It's a drill, yes, but like it's technical because you got to stay on that line to.
It's more important than the 40.
And
For a receiver.
And the 40, again, do the math. The football field's 53 1/3 yards wide. So if you got a guy who's getting up to 20 miles an hour on a gauntlet drill, he's reaching that speed at like the halfway mark of the field.
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever you ended up at number 40 at like the 40th yard, you're running, you're not catching it. This dude's hitting top speed, running, at like getting when he gets to like yard 15, 20, and he's not dropping a pass, staying on the line. That was impressive to me, and guys like that are going to be good.
Yeah, and let me say this. I mean, at pick 45, assuming we go offensive line in the first round, at pick 45, I'm looking wide receiver.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for several traits. I want good size, Michael Thomas type size, like that 6'3", 212.
I think we need it, honestly.
We
at this
need
point.
a physical,
Yeah.
tough, mean wide receiver. We've got the smaller, faster, precise route runner in Chris Olave, speed demon and Rashid Shaheed. A.T. Perry, bigger guy, but we need to see more out of him before we can go ahead and
look, let's not. I think people always want to oftentimes put players into a mold they're not in yet. You know, like when Juwan Johnson came in as a wideout, everyone's like, he's got to put on weight. Make him a tight end, will be great. Well, he put on weight, and it kind of threw him off. So people look at A.T. Perry, and they're like, well, if A.T. Perry could put on weight, he could be that big physical guy. He's already got the size, the height. It's like, well, but maybe that's just not him. And there's a place for him as what he is. A fourth receiver can perfectly fit as a 6'4" dude who just happens to be 205 pounds. That doesn't mean that you can't and shouldn't go get a bigger, stockier guy who's also 6'4" or 6'3". Because you've already got Olave and Shaheed, who yet different, fit a similar kind of size mold and speed.
Yeah, I've got 5 guys that I'm initially targeting in on day 2, which is the second and the third round. And obviously this is subject to change based on what happens tomorrow night. Somebody unforeseen falling out of the first round.
Sure.
But right now, Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State, Xavier Legette, wide receiver, South Carolina, Malachi Corley, wide receiver, Western Kentucky, Braden Fisk, defensive tackle, Florida State, and then honestly, Michael Pratt, quarterback, Tulane.
In the second round?
In the third round.
Oh,
if
okay.
we get
Straight
into
up.
the third round.
Do you think that's even so high?
Look, he's going to go on day 2.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it looks is like him and Spencer Rattler are going to get into day 2. Michael Pratt, we've all watched Tulane games over the last couple of years. They were very successful with him under center, and I like him a lot.
Yeah,
I think you gotta
really high ceiling as an NFL quarterback.
Higher ceiling than Haener. Haener obviously, the mold, he looks like he fits the mold of a career number 2, almost like a Chase Daniel, who's always going to be in the league for 12 years and he's probably going to make a good amount of money, but, he's never going to be that sustained starter. I think Pratt actually has a chance to be a solid starter in the NFL.
Yeah.
And again, this is only if we get into the third round, in a trade-up.
How many?
But at 45, give me those wide receivers or give me Fisk.
How many 5th-round picks are you okay with giving up to move
to the third?
Yeah,
all of them.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah, there's 5. I think we have 4 of them.
They're all for sale for
Oh,
max.
hell yeah. And then the 6 and the 7, do whatever you got to get into the third. You got to get someone who can be, a viable candidate to start this year.
Let me ask you this: we were high on this guy immediately after the combine. Say we go offensive lineman pick 14.
Right.
Braden Fisk is on the board at 45.
That's the guy I just mentioned.
You just said Fisk?
Were you not listening to anything
I was
just
looking at
said?
my computer screen. You're
All
talking about Michael Pratt.
No. I'll go through the list again.
Apologies
at
to our listeners
45,
there.
At 45, Keon Coleman.
He's in your cloud. Okay.
Malachi Corley.
But I guess my question, though, is...
Xavier Legette, Braden Fisk. Those were the 4
So he's
at
in your,
45.
He's in your cloud.
He's in my cloud at 45.
At 45, right.
At 45.
So my question is...
Pratt is if we somehow get into the third.
Right. So my question, though, is specific to, would you take him over one of the wide receivers? Would you take him over Keon or Legette?
I would not be angry if we did.
Okay.
They're all in that cloud
That's
in some order.
Yeah.
To me, obviously, the defensive line and the offensive line is more important than your second or third wide receiver.
We talked about it postseason episode. Trenches, man.
Yeah, so at that point, Fisk is an animal. I watched just about every Florida State game this year, and when I tell you that dude jumped off the screen every single game I watched.
Dude, if we had Fisk...
And I was telling you about him before the combine, and then he blew up the combine. Blew it up.
There's one good thing that if we take Fisk, there's an automatic nickname for our interior D-line. Trailer Park Boys. God, I thought that was going to hit.
No.
What?
I've been calling him Kingpin, dude, because Wilson Fisk was Kingpin in Marvel Comics.
No, not just him, but
I know.
him with Brazil.
I get what you're saying.
Come on, Max. What?
That
was good. There's people laughing right now listening to this.
Nobody's
and you're
listening.
Not.
Nobody's laughing.
Nobody's listening. We hope you're listening. If Nick was here, he would have given me a chuckle.
No, he wouldn't have.
You don't think?
No. Your brother Casey is laughing at you right now.
He'd be chuckling at you not chuckling.
Casey is laughing at you right now.
Well, he's laughing because of this exchange.
No, he's laughing at you for that comment.
He laughs at me about a lot of stuff.
This is true.
Okay, so Fisk, you would not be mad.
I would not be mad at all. Now, let me ask you this. Who's a guy for you that he might be a 5th-round pick, a 6th-round pick? Do you have a guy that you're like, man, I watched him in college. I think he's going to be a better pro than he's projected to be, and I would just just love to have him at some point in the draft. It could be, I'm trying to think of a good example of someone.
I mean, there's a...
Well, like me, last year with A.T. Perry, when I was like on day 3, I was like, I'd love for the Saints to pick A.T. Perry, and they ended up picking him.
Yeah. Well, for me...
You're going to say Ladd McConkey?
Well, no, Ladd's doesn't fit that bill because some people have projected him even into the first round. And I was listening to T-Bob and Hester earlier this week, and Hester brought up a good point. He's like, as much as I love Ladd McConkey and as good as he could be as an NFL wide receiver...
He's too much like the ones we have.
Exactly. He doesn't compliment our guys. But I will stay on the Georgia player train here, and I really like Cedric Van Pran-Granger.
You have mentioned him multiple times. He's center/guard.
I just think he's a NOLA boy. He went to Warren Easton. There's that. So maybe I'm a little biased on that. But he's one of your I think he's one of these guys that the Saints often look to be honest.
Versatile.
He was one of the best centers in college football. It's a light draft on center. He hasn't really gone up high on the draft board. Maybe it's the measurables. But this he's a dog when he plays, and he is a dog. But he's a smart kid. He's multiple year starter. He's got 2 national championships under his belt plus last year, and he loved in the locker room, team captain. He fits all the check boxes in my opinion. If he falls out of favor with teams because of the advanced analytics and measurables and all that stuff, and we have a chance to jump back in, maybe we have a couple 5th-round picks left, jump into round 4 if he's not taken yet, could be a steal, and maybe give you an out if you end up having to pay a Ruiz or a McCoy too much.
Well, we already paid Ruiz and McCoy, so they're under contract.
Later.
They're not going to get much more than they're getting. But no, I like that choice. He's a good player. My guy, Johnny Wilson, the wide receiver / possible projected tight end from Florida State.
Sure.
6'6" and some change, fast, ran a 4.5 40.
Yeah.
Every time I watched him, he always flashed. Obviously would fill the need for a bigger, more physical wide receiver that we don't have on the roster. So he would be a really good complementary player to those guys. He's probably my guy that 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Not sure exactly where he goes because he's kind of a tweener. Would love to see the Saints pick him up. And then, man, I gotta go back to Malachi Corley. Out of the wide receivers, I said I would like to see at 45. I think Corley is the one who has the best chance to slide to the 3rd round.
Yeah.
Very Debo Samuel-like. About 5'10", 5'11", but weighs about 215 to 220. Just stocky, fast, physical, breaks tackles. Would love for the Saints to pick him at some point.
And if that's where the Saints have to go get their outside of the Power 5 fix, fine
exactly. And look, you can take those chances, once you get to the 3rd round. And the thing about Corley is he's another one of those movable chess pieces. Ran a lot of bubble screens, end arounds, and stuff like that at Western Kentucky. Very good yards after the catch guy. So he would be one of those guys you could move him around the board and line him up in the backfield and just give the defense a lot of different looks with him.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. Yeah, it does get a little bit more uncertain. I mean, every draft gets more uncertain after the top, first 3 rounds. But this whole gap that we have this year, between 2 and 5, it's going to seem like forever. Like you said, I'm sure we get back into it. I'd be shocked if we don't.
Yeah, I think we will. We'll all be watching the draft together tomorrow night with the Saints Block Party guys, and then on a Friday night, my game plan: watch the draft at home. There's a dinner I got to go to around probably 8:30, so I'll wait for the Saints to pick at 45, and I'll be checking the phone from then on, waiting to see for when we trade up into the 3rd round. Because to me, it's a no-brainer. It's going to happen. It's in their DNA. There's no way this team will be content to sit out rounds 3 and 4.
No.
There's just no way.
And it's the call it model or just it's been the tendency of Loomis where, when he sees a guy that he really likes and knows that he has a compensation package that allows him to go up and get him, he doesn't hesitate. He'll do it.
Well, let me say this. I got one more guy. If we do keep one of those 5th-round picks, the punter from Iowa. He's another Australian guy. He's a little bit older. He's like 27, 28.
You want to go Aussie again?
I want to go Aussie. I want to go good Aussie. Because this dude has a cannon.
Okay.
And it's the opposite of the Aussie that we have. the one Headley who does not have a cannon, even though he's big and jacked.
Does this Iowa Aussie have neck tats?
He might. I can neither confirm nor deny, but he is a beast. I want to say he's about 6'4", about 235.
I don't know.
And I would have no problem. But Headley's punting at the end of the year last year for the most part was terrible.
Yeah.
Anytime we needed him to just crush one, he would shank it or deliver a knuckleball that went like 30 yards.
That was hard to watch. So I'm fine with getting a new punter. I'm not married to Headley or anything.
Look, the last time we picked a punter, look who it was. The beloved Thomas Morstead.
The Thomas Morstead.
So I have no problem to them going and doing that again.
I'm not going to remember what mock it was, but one of these extended mocks actually had us taking the punter from Kentucky who, I didn't know anything about him before, but apparently he had, multiple 60-yard punts. Was one of the top guys in the country. And it was the first mock I saw where we drafted a punter. So it's funny you say that because...
Look up Torrey Taylor from Iowa. Monster.
Right. Yep.
He was easily the best punter in college football the last 2 years.
I want to ask about a guy you mentioned on a previous pod, maybe post-combine as well, when we talked about drafting a running back and saying we just need a guy who's just a burner. Kind of Miami Dolphins mold where they just got fast guys. Just give me a young, fast dude. So Isaac Garendo out of Louisville. Do you think he'll fall to the 5th? Will we have to trade up to get him? If we do...
Man, that's a 6th or a 7th round pick. That dude didn't do anything. And he might be a 5th round pick.
He had his 40 time is what's going to make people consider taking him higher.
Look, once we get to the 5th round, I'm fine with taking flyers on guys that are fast as fuck.
Sure.
And just have elite measurables. That's how Raheem Mostert. I mean, look what he did last year.
Yeah, that's
that dude was undrafted, but his thing coming out of Purdue was he was fast as fuck.
Yeah.
So, under that scenario, I'd be fine taking a flyer on somebody like that in the 5th round. I do love my guy Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, 20 years old. He's going to be 20 years old for the entire rookie season, 6'2", about 240. 20? He is a monster. So he's somebody that if you...
20-year-old playing in the NFL?
Yeah. So if he gets to the 4th or the 5th round, that's where I would be fine taking another running back.
Yeah.
And, I'd like to get somebody with some juice. The kid from Tennessee is incredible, right? Yep. He's explosive.
Some people had, it's easy.
And Trey Benson from Florida State is my guy.
He's got juice.
He's got juice.
You love your juice. He's got juice.
He's got juice. If we're going to get a running back, which I'm fine with, is as long as it's on day 3. It has to be a day 3 pick. Give me somebody who's got speed.
Yeah, I don't want to hear the phrase, but he's got good vision. Because that means he's not fast.
I want somebody. I want someone who's explosive. It's got to be someone that's explosive because look, we need it in the backfield.
Give me a guy who's blind but can run a 4.2.
I mean, they can't be blind. They're going to run right into the offensive line and fall down.
Maybe. Maybe they hit and they score a touchdown. Nick kind of mentioned it last pod with a certain fullback. But all right, a couple questions though. I think. All right. Over under 2.5 offensive linemen drafted for the Saints. Realistically.
Ooh. I think we get 2.
So you're going under?
I mean, I don't think we're going to have enough picks to go more. I think they're going to end up trading.
4th-round picks?
I know. I think all they're going to get back is to go into the 3rd.
Under 2.5 offensive linemen. Over under 5.5 QBs drafted in the 1st round.
I think we see Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Penix, and I think Nix sneaks in.
So you're going 6. I think it's very possible.
The key is we need at least 4 of them to go ahead of us.
Yeah,
5 would be
preferably
amazing.
As many before as possible. Do you have a 2024 NFL draft hot take?
Man, you're the king of the hot takes. No, I really don't. No, I don't have a hot take in this. I mean, to me, the best player in the draft is Bowers. I don't have much for a hot take on the draft. What you got? That's your department.
My hot take is that
it better not be someone's going to lead or be 3rd on the team in tackles.
No, it won't be that. You can't get any tackles in the draft.
I'm hoping you're going to say that Jonah Ellis, Caden's little brother, is the best player in the draft.
Oh, well, I thought that was just assumed before we started recording this. But, here nor there. I don't like it, but just knowing the Saints in our history, I'm going to say the Saints at 14. I hate even saying this. They're going to draft a defensive player that does not play on the D-line.
So corner.
Yeah. I think they have either Arnold or Mitchell from Toledo way up on their board.
Then you better trade Lattimore and get a first-round pick.
It would be very us to just go take one of those dudes thinking that he should have been the number 5 or 6 or 7th pick, fell to 14, and then they go clean up the mess later. I would hate it, but that's my hot take.
Okay. Well, hopefully you're wrong.
Yeah, I hope I am too.
But that's all I got, man. Any other thoughts?
No, but just clench tight and hope for the best.
Yeah, I would say in roughly 24 hours we should be on the clock or close to being on the clock and getting ready to disappoint all of us.
I can hear the little chimes in my head right now with the pick is in.
Man, I might start drinking tonight. Christ.
I'm telling you, the nervousness.
I'm going to get in. If Bowers is there at 14 and we don't pick him, you're just going to see me get up from the bar. I'm not closing out my tab. I'm probably going to throw a chair or a trash can and I'm walking straight to my car.
It won't be a good day.
Yeah. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode. We'll be back next week with a draft recap episode. So until then, who dat?
Who dat?